Where do you see a starting soon screen? Oh, okay, okay, okay. Oh, I know what you're talking about. A separate, yeah, I can do that too. I might not, but I might. Mhm. Let's see, what am I doing? I am going live on Streamlabs. Boop a doop a doop a doop a doop a doop. There we go. Go. Okay, are you live? Okay. Let's see. I want to go. I'm gonna go to this one, and then go to this one, and then I'm gonna go to. I'm gonna just turn on some Final Fantasy VI music. And that'll be my starting soon screen. Just see. 6 OST. Ba-doop, ba-doop. You're not a fake gamer. You're not a fake gamer. Am I live? I don't even know if I'm live. I don't even know. Hope I'm live. Let me check on my laptop and figure out if I'm live. Go to this. Huh? Oh, did they? Oh, are people saying anything? Oh, okay. 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 It says that I'm streaming, but over here it says that this isn't going to start until this on YouTube is still counting down with my thumbnail still showing. What does yours look like? Oh yeah, I have that going live. It's a streaming software. I should have never scheduled the stream. I should have just done it the way that I know how to do it. This is what happens whenever I. Yeah, it's how to upload videos. Just go live, right? Even though I already have a thing to go. Maybe it'll just kick me into being live when the timer is up. I don't know what the hell's going on. If not, I'm gonna go live the way that I know how to go live. It might take a little bit more time, but that's what I'm going to do. And it is what it is. Ba-da-bum-bum. I'm ready to go too. If this thing would just let me go into details. Maybe if I can like just make it public instead of scheduled, but it's not gonna let me. If I make it live at like no, it's not gonna let me. Damn it. I am not. I think I see it. It says connect streaming software to go live. It is connected. This pain in my ass little thing. It says live. Ugh, God Almighty. Streaming is advanced. Remote control. Game over link support. Stream. Let me stop this stream. End stream. Yeah, end stream. Go away. Okay. I go live. But then the stream key I thought was still in there. Stream. Yeah, URL. It says right there. There's the stream key. Copy that. It's already in there. It's a shit. Stream URL, copy that. That's what I'm talking about. Like, done. Okay. Go live. Go live. An error occurred. Please try again later. Oh, but then it says go live. It looks like you're ready. Click here to start streaming. Go live. Please, 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 please. I think it may live. Okay. Let's go ahead and minimize that and minimize that. And okay, if you're ready, we can be ready. Are you ready? Let me click on this to make sure that I see what's happening normally. I like to look at what I'm doing on my my laptop so I can see it like live, you know what I mean? So I know what the viewers see, I guess, is what I'm saying. Hey. I don't know. Okay, let's just do this. Okay, so Streamlabs. Then I got to go to this one, and I think I am live. Am I live? People, tell me, please.
All
Gosh.
right.
Yay! Hello. Can you see me? Please.
Can you see us? So, just so you know, we're streaming on both David and my channels at the same time. So, if we comment on something that you don't see, then maybe. But anyway, yeah. So welcome. Thanks everybody for showing up. We are going to be doing a fun little friendly debate discussion. Friendly about retro versus modern JRPGs and the pluses and minuses of both. So before we get going, I just want to make sure everybody gets a good idea of like our gaming like history and where we started and everything. So let me just start with you, David. So like, what systems did you grow up with? Like, what were some of your first RPGs? And then for anyone that might not know, what's your favorite JRPG?
Okay, so I grew up with the regular NES, the regular Nintendo. That was my system. That's what I had. That's what I absolutely just adore. It is amazing to me. I just can't say enough good things about it. The my favorite system is probably like the SNES. Like I don't know. I like the SNES. There's something about it. I love the pixel artwork. I just love it. I adore it. I had a Game Boy as well. I remember I was 7 years old and I got a Game Boy, and I played that in the car on these road trips and everything else that we had. That sort of stuff. My very first JRPG that I ever played was probably a lot of other people, and raise your hand in the comments if this was your first JRPG too. Dragon Warrior 1. Dragon Warrior 1 was my very first JRPG, and I still love the Dragon Warrior series to this day.
Nice. Dragon Warrior 1. And then what is your favorite JRPG if you had to have one?
It's so hard for me to just say like one. You know what I mean? If there's like one RPG that I could play for like the rest of my life, if I was trapped on a desert island, I would have to probably say something like Final Fantasy V, simply because of the job system and the replayability and that sort of thing. It's a guilty pleasure. It's a total guilty pleasure of mine is Final Fantasy V.
Okay. Interesting. I guess for some reason I always assumed it was Secret of Mana or something like that, but
I love Secret of Mana. It's not my favorite, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm actually playing through 5 right now with the Pixel remaster, so it'll be interesting to talk about that in a minute.
We'll be talking about the Pixel remasters, yeah.
Oh yeah. And then for me, I kind of, same thing, grew up with like the NES, Super Nintendo, but I feel like my formative years playing games where like I really got into it and like really grew a passion was like PlayStation 1 And it wasn't even with RPGs initially. It was stuff like, Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk. And weirdly enough, a lot of sports games. Like, I'm a big sports fan, like football in particular. So I played a lot of like football games. Me and my buddies were really into like Jet Moto. Did you ever play Jet Moto or know what that is?
Something tells me like whenever you were talking about NES and SNES, because I thought you were gonna start with like PS2. I thought to
Well,
myself, this bitch is gonna say that he likes sports games. And then you did.
oh yeah. I was into football. I was that guy. I was the guy that bought Madden every year for sure. So, but
You were
I
that
haven't played him
guy.
in a while. But then
You were that guy that JRPG fans just love.
that's right. Yep. Mr. yeah, Nick in the chat, Mr. Madden over here. Yep. Um,
Yep.
and then for a while, I would say my favorite JRPG was Final Fantasy VII because that was like the first one that I played. And then I would say now my favorite is Persona 4 Golden or Persona 4 whatever. I would say Golden because they changed the voice actors and there's different quality of life updates and things like that. And
Did you get the one for the Vita?
yeah, that's where I started it on Vita.
Okay.
I kind of want to I haven't bought it on the newer systems or PC or anything like that, but it'd be fun to replay. I haven't replayed Persona 4 Golden in a really long time, so I think it'd be fun to do that. But yeah, so we've got our intros out of the way, and then in case it's not clear, we're sort of taking sides where David is like the retro on the side of retro and I'm on the side of modern, although we obviously, dabble in both. But let me just start out by asking you, like, what is it about retro that you prefer, or why do you like retro RPGs versus modern ones?
I just they they weren't afraid to experiment back when. Now it's like it's so formulaic. You have your little gameplay loop where it's, maybe like town dungeon, town dungeon, town dungeon, or if it's Persona, you have dungeon social event, social event, talking, social event, oh look, let's do an upskirt shot, it's just like, they just had a charm back then. They weren't afraid to really go out on a limb and experiment. And it seems like nowadays, if if the developer doesn't think, or if some suit in a boardroom doesn't think that a game is going to sell over 1 million copies, then they're just not going to make it. And that is what it is, and that's the end of the road. And other games that we grew up with that we love, Lufia, Grandia, Breath of Fire, these long-running JRPGs that died with modern gaming. They were alive until PS2, and then PS3 hit, and boom, they died. So like, modern gaming killed it. It killed it. It killed it. I'm sorry, it killed it.
So you mentioned, like they were retro RPGs would like experiment a lot. And I agree. Like, I mean, even if you think of like some of the bigger ones, like Final Fantasy going from 7 to 8, I mean, that was so experimental to the point where people
It
didn't
definitely
didn't
was.
like it. And even like the even older ones, like you go from 1 to 2, like two's battle system is really different than Final Fantasy 1.
Oh yeah.
Are there any like really unique like games that we're talking about like taking risks back then that like stand out that maybe aren't like 10 out of 10 like all-time classics, but are like that was kind of a fun little thing that they tried?
Yes, I mean, there's so many. Like, no one's going to say that something like Paladin's Quest is a 10 out of 10 game. You know what I mean? But they did it. They made it. It's literally an RPG made in all pastels. Like, it's weird. You can like fight different body parts and like headbutt the enemies. It's strange. But they did it and they made it and they didn't care about the sales, even though we didn't get the second game because it still sucked. But like, even like people who normally read sports games, Temco, your little sports people, they made an RPG back then. It sucked. It was Secret of the Stars. It was absolutely terrible. But, they made one. There's just, I don't know. There's just so many cute ones. There's so many cute ones.
And even the game you were talking about earlier, Legend of Legaia, maybe we were talking about that before the stream started, but you mentioned Legend of Legaia, and that's a game where you kind of make your own combos in a way. If I remember that game right.
Yeah. It's kind of like Street Fighter meets an RPG, and that's really experimental. For anybody who's never played Legend of Legaia, and I'm sure many of you probably have, um, you have three different party members, and Vaughn is kind of the average one. Noah, the girl, she's the fastest, and she can put in a whole bunch of combos and stuff. And the combos kind of fit together and piece together, and you could do like over, up, and then you do like an uppercut or something like that. And it's really cool. It's just neat. And like the magic system, it's like all blue magic. You have to absorb the little Cerus into the raw Ceru, and you can cast their spells. It's cool. And you don't see experimental stuff like that often anymore. You just don't. It's just kind of gone, you know? Like, how many sci-fi JRPGs do you see nowadays? Not really that many.
None.
But back then, you had the Star Ocean series, you had the Phantasy Star series, even the very first Final Fantasy 1, was kind of sci-fi-ish, with the time loop and the floating air castle and things like that. There was a lot of just different weird stuff going on that you just don't see. It's like they just want to do a rote medieval European setting, or their other favorite setting, high school, the best time of your life. You know?
I will say I can defend the high school thing because that is sort of a tired trope, especially in anime. But for a little context, Japan looks at high school the way Americans look at college, in that it's sort of their time before they have to like start real life or whatever. So, and Japanese work culture is very different than here. So I think they look at high school more fondly than us, because obviously, like, I think most Americans, high school had its challenges. You get made fun of, or you don't fit in or whatever. And I'm sure it's like that in Japan too. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely it's tired. But I mean, as a big fan of Persona, I can't say that I don't love it. It's just such a good vehicle for that type of gameplay.
I think the first time that I saw a high school setting, I was okay with it because it was, the first time I saw it, and it was probably something like Final Fantasy VIII, where it was their weirdo version of high school. Even though I hate Final Fantasy VIII, the high school setting is the least of my hate that I have with Final Fantasy VIII, but I can deal with it. But nowadays, it's everything is everything is high school. It's just like this Caligula effect thing that I just talked about in a release video is high school. This Loop 8 game. Okay, so Loop 8, it's from the creators of Grandia and Lunar. Like, two massively fantasy games that are just charming and wonderful. But what do? They created some high school sim. All the personas, high school, like everything's high school. Trails of Cold Steel, like,
Fire Emblem, even the modern one.
Yeah, Fire Emblem, like three houses. You have to get, a teacher and all this. Everything is high school, and it drives me crazy.
I think you can blame Persona for that one. I know people hate when I mention Persona and how influential it is, but like, you didn't start seeing that stuff on the scale that we see it now until, I would say, Persona 4 Golden. Because like when Persona 4 came out, like nobody even really knew about it. I don't think it's not what it is today for sure. But I think after Golden, and then especially Persona 5, like everybody started
it is a roach that must be stepped upon and killed.
No, let's keep it going. Tokyo Xanadu 2, let's just keep it going. Everything. Let's make it high school.
Oh God, you're gonna defend Tokyo Xanadu?
Oh,
really?
I love that. That's like a top 10 JRPG for me. I love that game.
Girl.
So okay, so we got into it a little bit just now, but like, what are some modern mechanics? Obviously, the high school stuff, or that setting at least. But what about modern RPGs? Do you just not like, or are you like, man, what if I could get rid of this today? I would. Like, what are some mechanics in modern RPGs that you're just not a fan of?
Okay, so here is the deal. And I think that the vast majority of the viewers would agree with me on this. If you're going to go back and you're going to replay a modern game, or a retro game, I'm sorry. If you're going to go back and you're going to replay a retro game, and you're going to do it now in this day and age, and you have the choice of playing it on an emulator versus playing it on the actual hardware, 99% of you are going to choose the emulator. You just are. You get save states, you get fast forwarding, you don't have to blow on a cartridge, you don't have to deal with, maybe your save getting corrupted on the NES cartridge. There's so many benefits to it. So a lot of the stuff that I don't like in retro gaming is 100% alleviated by the addition of emulation, with being able to save anywhere you want to, not having to wait for a save point, with being able to fast forward through random battles, that sort of stuff. Even like the grind, like grinding sucks. It just does. It just sucks. And it was fine with me whenever I was a kid and I had nothing else to do. Like I remember as a child in probably 5th or 6th grade, I got Dragon Warrior 4. And I would sit there on my desk and I would be doing my homework, doing like a math problem at the same time with my left hand, hitting the A button to get through the battle in Dragon Warrior 4 while I was solving my math problem with the right, you know what I'm saying?
That's hilarious.
Because you had to grind at the same time. Then when I was done with my homework, I already grinded and I could move on with the game. You know what I'm saying? But that it just alleviates a lot of stuff. So yeah, grinding sucks, random battles, battles taking forever, But you know what? I also have to say this in retro gaming defense. If you look at battles from the first 7 Dragon Warriors, the first 6 Final Fantasies, you hit the attack button, boom, boom, like that's it. But if you look at some of the more modern games and you hit the attack button or you cast the magic spell or you cast the summon or whatever it is, it's this whole frickin' song and dance and quick time event to go over and hit the enemy, or it's God forbid, it's like Legend of Dragoon, and for every single frickin' attack you have to do, you have to hit the stupid little box, So each of them has their pluses and minuses, all that, but I think a lot of it is alleviated with emulation, which I think a lot of people are using.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a huge chore to go back and play those older games in their original form, especially like you said, without the fast forward. And I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about this, but like the pixel remasters, right? Like there were so many of those games, and Nick's in the chat. Like we used to do this. We attempted, I should say, we didn't even do it. We attempted to do this stream where we would play through every Final Fantasy game, but it was like the PS1 port. So it didn't have fast forward. It didn't have any of that. And I was like, how did anybody play this? Because it's like, if somebody dies, I could be wrong, but I don't think there are Phoenix Downs in the first game. Or if there are, they're very rare. You don't.
There are not. You have to go back to the clinic in the first game.
Yeah, you had to go back to the church or whatever. I'm like, this is so archaic. Like, it's just so hard to go back to those games. But the pixel remasters, you just turn on 4 times experience, 4 times gil, speed up the battles, and it's just like, oh, this is actually like a playable game now. Now, the one thing I will say, and I think I feel like around PS2, PS3, we started getting this quality of life improvement, but some of those old RPGs, it's so hard to figure out where you're supposed to go. Like if I wasn't playing with a guide, I would have no idea where I'm going. Because like in the first Final Fantasy, you get to that first town and it doesn't tell you like, oh, you need to go talk to the king or whatever. You just stumble upon the pirate and then you're like, now you have a pirate ship. I'm like, oh, okay, that's random. So I think those...
You don't actually have to talk to the king in the first game. You could just go fight Garland,
Sure, sure. I'm just saying as an example, like what...
I know.
That I think that's one of the more frustrating parts about playing through the pixel remasters, because they're, I'm enjoying, like I just finished 4 and I'm playing through 5 and 4. I was actually kind of surprised at how good the story was. Like right at the beginning, I'm like, wow, they're actually like kind of hooking me, and like I feel bad for these little pixel characters that are getting killed and stuff. And like that first opening when they steal the first crystal and they kill the...
Oh yeah, the wizards in Massidia. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and this character is like conflicted. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing this. Am I doing it for the right reason?" Like, whoa, okay, this is shocking. But then every so often, because there's like, there's the overworld, the underworld, and spoilers for like a 30-year-old game, but it's like the overworld, the underworld, and then the moon. So like at some point, it's hard to like near the end of the game. I was like, so where am I supposed to go? Like, am I going to the underworld? Am I going to because there were so many.
I could see that. As a player who never played it as a kid or whatever, I can totally see where you're coming from. But whenever I'm playing a retro game now for like the billionth time, it's just second nature. I just know where to go and know what to do.
Totally.
It's like JRPG comfort food.
I will say though, they like starting with the PS1, like with Final Fantasy VII, they started doing this thing where like the text box would pop up and it's like, oh, let's go to Calm, and then the town would be like in a different color. So it's like, hey, pay attention, idiot, which I appreciate because before, you're like, if you're not paying attention, or maybe they wouldn't even say that, like the conversation would just end, and then you had to talk to some random guy in the item shop who would be like, "Huh, I heard something weird is going on in the next town over," and it's like, oh, okay, now I get what's happening.
I remember being lost in a couple games as a child. Like looking back, I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't because it was so long ago. But I know that like maybe like something like Dragon Warrior 4. Did you ever play that? Dragon Quest 4? Did you ever play that?
The only two I've ever played are 8 and 11, and that's it.
Those are fantastic choices. But okay, so Dragon Warrior 4 uses the chapter system, and chapters 1 through 4 are very linear. And then you get to chapter 5, and the entire world is your oyster. And you have to go out and find the other characters, and you get a boat pretty early into chapter 5, and the whole world is just like, here you go! Find your 8 characters. You know what I mean? Figure it out, kid. So I get what you're saying. I totally get it.
So on the flip side, are there well, okay, let me ask you this. Are there any retro games that you think don't hold up anymore, especially because of like there's outdated mechanics or they have not gotten those modern niceties? And to me, I haven't played this, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, I know I'm going to hate this game, is Earthbound. And I can appreciate the charm of it, but like this idea that you can only hold so much money in your wallet and you have to constantly go to the bank, and then this guy is stopping you all the time to take pictures and stuff like that. To me, it just seems like it would drive me nuts. And Dave, he looks like he wants to murder me right now, but
Sounds great. I was one of the kids who got Earthbound back when I was a kid, and I played it before, I don't know what happened, where the internet exploded and said it's a hidden gem and blah, blah. And I'm like, this game that I played 10 years ago? Okay, whatever. Like, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I think it's a great game. By the way, you can hold as much money as you want to in Earthbound. Your wallet does not have a limit. However, your item bag does have a limit. And if we're going to be crapping on some retro games, I want to take the moment to crap on Legend of Dragoon because I hate it. So speaking of item limits, Legend of Dragoon, 32 item limit. I don't know why I'm crapping on my own retro, whatever. But I hate Legend of Dragoon.
And I think it's all its poor qualities really came to light when it recently came to PS4 and PS5, because I was like, oh, I love this game growing up, and then I played it, I'm like, oh yeah.
I put out a video called Don't Be Fooled, and I warned you. There's no magic. You have the battles take forever, even if you just get through it, but then they take even longer because you have to defend to heal yourself. Ugh! So moving off of Legend of Dragoon, I would say some other games back then did have a very poor translation. Some examples were Secret of the Stars. You know what? Do you want to guess? You probably never played Secret of the Stars. Do you want to guess what the name of the bad guy was in Secret of the Stars?
Oh man, King Evil or something?
No, the bad guy's name was Bad.
Wow.
Like it was so stupid. Instead of fighting a Kraken, you fought a Clarkin. Like it was ridiculous.
It's like, wasn't Bart's, wasn't his name used to be Butts or something like that?
Butts. Yeah, Butts. Yeah. Like the translations were just laughably terrible in some games. Breath of Fire 2 is guilty of this. Like it would like Breath of Fire 2 would flip flop yes and no. Like it was that freaking bad. It was just ridiculous. Then there's some other games that I feel like would be a classic if they were released maybe 10 years later, whenever you could actually download a patch to fix some of the issues. However, retro games that you can play on an emulator, you can go to something like romhacking.net and you can download all sorts of patches to make them so much better. Like fixing the translation of Aquatillion, like fixing the translation of Breath of Fire 2, or even improving the encounter rate of something like Black Sigil, which is notorious for its horrible encounter rate. But I loved Black Sigil anyway, because I'm a sadist. I don't know.
So before we kind of move into like the more modern game stuff, are there, we talked a little bit about like what you didn't like about retro stuff. Are there mechanics in modern RPGs that you don't like, and are there modern RPGs that everyone loves that you just can't stand?
Okay, so mechanics in modern JRPGs that I really can't stand. The anime everywhere. Everywhere I look, everywhere I turn, you can't get away from it. And it's like RPGs back when didn't used to be this way. So I know that I'm one of the few people out there who doesn't really care for anime. I don't really watch it. I've watched literally one anime in my life, and that was Sailor Moon. And that's it.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I know, the power of the moon. So so like, back then a game was just a game and it wasn't overly anime, but now it's like every single anime trope that you could possibly fit into a game is just stuffed down your throat. High school settings. Ugh. We discussed this. If I play one more game that's set in a high school, I will literally vomit. It's just the worst. And then it's like, not only do you have to deal with high school settings, you have to deal with like the dating life sim junk, where like all I really want to do is explore this world, fight some battles, level up, find treasures, go through a dungeon, that sort of stuff. Get to the next area, see what's there. But I can't do that yet because I have to go on a date with my teacher, And it's like,
hell
what?
Yeah.
But you know what? Actually,
no, for the win.
Yeah. Actually, no. I have a choice. I can go on a date with my much older teacher, or I can go on a date with my little sister. Those are my two choices, And it's just like, come on. I can't stand that stuff. Then also there's an overly complex battle system as well. Like how many times have you played a game and you enjoy the game and you're having a fun time, but then maybe 20 or so hours into it, you got to put it down because something else comes out. And then maybe a month or two later, you come back to the game and you're like, hey, I really like that game. Let me put it back in. And you think to yourself, what do I do? What button does this? Where do I go? What's going on? I have no idea. You forget the battle system. Like if I went back to play something like Atelier 3, which I loved, by the way. If I went back to play something like Atelier Rise of 3, I wouldn't know how to do the battle system anymore because you have to control Ryza and her two other partners concurrently, and you have to... Oh, thank you, Stephen Bobo. He says, if you don't like anime and RPGs, then play Western-style games like Mass Effect or Elden Ring. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But if I went back to Ryza 3... you have to create keys during combat at the same time that you're controlling three different characters, at the same time that you're trying to fulfill your teammates' requirements for hitting weaknesses. And it's just there's so much going on. If you play a retro game, you pick up the controller. Well, guess what? Up moves you up, and A is the attack button. You're done. There's nothing else to learn. So you can just pick them up and play them, and it's so nice. And I have an entire list of other mechanics in RPGs that I just can't stand, so let's go through this. Monster capturing. Let's talk about... Oh, hello, little person in the background. Monster capturing. I remember whenever Pokemon came out, and I didn't even really want to play it because I was so overwhelmed. I was in high school. I think I was a junior in high school whenever Pokemon came out. And I was like, there's 150 something character or Pokemon that you can capture. Like, the amount of characters in Final Fantasy VI was almost a little bit overwhelming to me. So I was just like, no. Also, huge worlds with nothing in them.
Oh,
Huge open regions that are completely empty. But you know what? You know why they're not empty? Because they're filled with crafting. Another thing that I can't stand. Whatever happened to just opening up a treasure chest and getting a firebrand? And now all of a sudden, you got a fiery sword of doom that you could just like kill people with. No, you can't do that anymore. You need to get the iron ignot. Then you need to get the little, I don't know, fire thingamajigger. Then you need to get the oil. And once you get all three things together, you can create Firebrand +1. But then you got to take the Firebrand +1 and do it with the Holy Flame. Then you get Firebrand +2, which has an extra 5% fire burn damage. And it's just like, ugh. God, give me just the Firebrand, like for real. What am I talking about? Oh, people who blab, oh, just like me, whenever I talk too much. People who blab on and on and on and on. You were just playing the Pixel Remasters. Isn't it so refreshing whenever you get to a place and you talk to the king and the king just is like, oh, hey guys, what's up? Hey, go to this cave over there and kill somebody. Isn't that nice? You're in and out of the king's audience chamber in under a minute. Nowadays, you have to talk to your girlfriend. Then you have to talk to your teacher. Then you got to talk to your little sister. Then you got to talk to Boobs over there. And you got to figure it out. Everybody has to have their own little talk. And Boobs has to say 2 things for each fucking boob. You know, it's just like everybody just like, shut up. Like, just let me play the damn game. God. Okay.
real quick, just want to give Isual a shout out. Thanks for the super chat, man. He said, Fanny both, keep up the good work. And then he's dissing one of the guys in our Discord. He's like, Tails is a mid series.
Oh gosh. I actually have more of another bullet point. Yeah, back then you had world maps. Do a world map. I want world maps. Come on now. I want world maps. It's just ridiculous. Open regions I can deal with, but world maps are really where it's at. You had full games with tons of towns and tons of dungeons. Remember when Final Fantasy 13 came out? Modern game, by the way. And the developers said, we can't create towns. They're too hard. Cry me a fucking river. Create some damn towns. It's ridiculous. So, because now, you know what you have? Hub towns. You have a hub town. One hub town. And it sucks because it's the same people, the same shop. It's no variety. Like, I like the variety. It's ridiculous. You have NPCs who don't matter. Back in the day, piggybacking off of what you were talking about earlier, about how you don't know where to go and the game doesn't really tell you where to go or whatever. Well, guess what? You had to talk to NPCs and they told you where to go. Nowadays, NPCs don't say anything. You know what they do say? I can't find my cat. No one gives a shit about your damn stupid cat, dumb NPCs. Be an NPC who actually freaking matters. It's just lifeless. And then there's these loots, and I'm going into this a little with crafting. Like, there's a billion sparklies all over the world. Do you actually give a crap about these stupid sparklies? I don't. It's never ending. Like, I would much rather be there. I would much rather enter a zone that has maybe 3 treasures that actually matter than to enter a zone with a billion stupid sparklies that you have to grab for crafting bullshit. Okay, I'm done. You can go now.
That's it. No, we had a couple people in chat like David out here spitting facts. So there's people on your side in here for sure.
Preach.
I will say, and this is gonna, I'm on the modern side, and this was like in that era where it was the transition, right? I've never understood the fascination with the Xenoblade games because I feel like they are guilty of the sparklies, the big empty open worlds. Like you just like, especially Xenoblade 1, like it has a good story, but like there's so many times you're just running in these huge zones and there's nothing to pick up. There's nothing. It's just sparklies everywhere.
Hey, Bluey. I have a little shout out here. It says
Yeah.
devs got cheap to the canned towns and the canned world maps. Damn straight, Bluey. Yes, they did. Piggybacking off of your Xenoblade comment, loved Xenoblade 1. I played it on the Wii. I had a great time with it. And I think what excuses that game is that was kind of the point. Like, the point was knowing that you are on top of these massive, massive monolithic gods, and you're exploring this entire place, and then you realize, oh my god, this is like the Bionis' calf. You know what I mean? Or then you go to his back and you can see like the Mechonis and you enter Gara Plains and you're soaring through Gara Plains, and then you come across discoveries, like discoveries that actually matter and give you experience points and things like that. That wasn't a thing. Xenoblade like introduced that. That was totally like a Xenoblade thing. So yeah, that was cool. Continue. Sorry. I talked too much. Sorry.
No worries. So I guess for me to flip the script about modern JRPGs. So this is why I kind of fell in love with JRPGs, and I feel like modern games just do this better now. I love exploring in games, and like in retro RPGs, it's like you kind of had to use your imagination a little bit because sometimes it didn't totally represent what it was supposed to be, or like especially in like the PS1 days, the a lot of the towns were pre-rendered, so you couldn't like twirl a camera around and like fully explore it. So with modern games, you get the opportunity to do that now, and I'm with you. I miss give me. This is why like something like Ni no Kuni was so special, because it like bridged the gap, right? It had like an old school design of like, it still had a world map, it still had tons of towns, but it looked modern, and it had voice acting, and it looked like Studio Ghibli and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I think
Super
that's
chat.
like a perfect.
Stephen Bobo, it says the only reason so many fetch quests and open worlds is justify paying $50 or $60 for a game that could probably be done in less than 20 hours. Oh, we'll get to side quests that do not matter. Do not worry, Stephen Bobo.
Yeah, I will say that like even some of my all-time favorite games, period, especially modern games, they're littered with like stupid bullcrap side quests. Like one of the ones that I really couldn't wrap my head around was Final Fantasy VII Remake. You were talking about cats earlier. There's literally a side quest where you have to go find cats. I'm like, what are we doing here? This is so weird.
Do you want to take a guess as to how many side quests that I completed in Final Fantasy Remake?
None.
7 Remake? Yeah. Big ol' 0. Screw that. Screw that.
The only time I did them was when you go to the slums, because depending on how many side quests you do dictates Aerith's dress later when you go to Don Corneo's palace.
Yeah, but that's different. That's not like side quest, you know. Hey, bring back Fluppy Dogs. We need to gift this man Grandia. You can rotate the camera. You've played Grandia, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Now, Grandia, you can rotate the camera. That was the one I was thinking of, like, as far as retro games go. And I love Grandia. Grandia is awesome. Like, of like the retro games that I think hold up and I really enjoy, Chrono Trigger, obviously, like the granddaddy. Final Fantasy VII. I have a soft spot for 8. I know people don't like 8, but 8, 9, Grandia, Lunar, probably some other ones.
Lunar. Good taste.
Yeah,
good taste with Lunar.
Yeah, Lunar is great. That is like when you think of like the quintessential like stereotypical JRPG, that's it. It's right. It's like the childhood friend, and like, oh, you know, we're going on an adventure, and then it turns on into this big globe-trotting adventure, and like all the tropes. You want to talk about all the JRPG tropes outside of like amnesia and burning your home village? Like it's got all of them, but like it's still like, I don't know. I think there's like a simple, joyful pleasure to like that game.
Does anybody have a more punchable face than Nash in Lunar? Like,
is he the guy, the magic guy with the yellow robe? Is that Nash?
Yeah, with the hair, and you meet him and he's combing his hair. Just want to smack him.
Oh yeah. But I will say I'm definitely a product, I guess, a product of the times where like my attention span is just garbage. And so a game like Persona and like Tokyo Xanadu, the reason why I enjoy them so much is it's constantly giving you something new to do. Whereas a lot of you're talking about the stereotypical loop, right? It's like, okay, dungeon town story, and just on, because there's a lot of JRPGs that follow that formula. But like with something like Persona, there is sort of like, hey, story, dungeon, socials, but you can do it however you want. You have a deadline, right? But typically, if you blow through it kind of fast, you don't have to. And people are always like, oh gosh, I feel so stressed out. I'm like, I feel like I have more time than I know what to do with in Persona games, because usually what I do is I beat the dungeon as soon as humanly possible, and then for like 28 days of the month or whatever, I'm just hanging out with my friends or working my job or on the sports team or whatever. And I think the reason why I like Persona in particular is because it all loops together, right? Like you talk to your friends, but then that feeds back into the combat. Like, okay, I'm going to talk to Chie or whatever, and then Chie gives me more benefits in battle. So it's like this cool story and gameplay mesh. And I feel like Persona did it really well, and people are definitely copying it. And there are other games that don't do it as well. Like Fire Emblem really latched onto that, like really bad. Like with Fates, I think is really when they started doing it pretty hardcore. And then it's been like,
They always had support conversations. They always did, but they really like just took it up another notch. You know, they really did. Yeah.
and so, speaking of Fire Emblem, I want to ask you about this, because I know everybody seems to hate Fates for some reason, but to me, it was basically just Awakening 2, Fire Emblem Awakening 2. So why, I really have never understood why that game got so much hate. Like, why do you think that is? I still can't really figure that out.
Thought it was fine. I didn't really find too much hate as far as I'm concerned. It might be because they kind of split it. Isn't that the one they like split into like 3 different games?
Yeah.
So they kind of like Pokemoned it out, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. Like people are like, you should have just given us all 3 games in one game, you know? But otherwise, I don't, because to me, Fire Emblem is one of the most formulaic RPGs out there. It is, here's your map, kill the enemies. Oh, okay, you're done. Here's your map, kill the enemies. Okay, you're done. Here's your map, kill the enemies. You know, for the most part, the vast majority of them, there's not really towns that you explore. There's not really a hub place to go to or anything. It's literally map, 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 map. So I don't understand why they would be upset about that, you know?
Yeah, that one I've never really understood, because I did, when I did that the series retrospective, and when I was going back to Fates, I was reading reviews and comments and stuff, and everybody was so pissed about Fates, and I was like, it plays the same. I thought the characters were more interesting. I thought the whole idea of like you have these 2 families and you have to pick a side. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, but
Yeah,
I'm in the minority.
I mean, I think that Fire Emblem does it does what it wants to do well. In the same way that Dragon Warrior is like the granddaddy of turn-based RPGs, like Fire Emblem is the granddaddy of strategy RPGs, and it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, and it does what it does, and it does it well, and that's fine with me. Getting back to your thing about Persona, though, you were talking about how you beat the dungeons first thing, then you get 28 days to kind of dig around. So I would like there to be an option of you beat the dungeon first day, and you can skip over the next 28 days to beat the next dungeon. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, people shut up. I don't care. I don't want to sit in class. I don't want to know about, I don't want to have to sit here and Google which samurai emperor in Japanese year 736 took over as shogun or whatever. Like, I don't care. I just want to play the stupid game, you know?
Yeah, that I've never really understood the like actually doing test questions and stuff, because that is literally just feels like school. I'm like, because usually
I
what
know,
I do is
and
like,
I'm just like,
I'll pull up a guide. Okay, that's the answer. Okay, like I've never got that one.
yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm looking here. Yeah, I want to talk about a couple retro RPGs that are considered like all-time classics that I don't think that I don't think hold up very well. And I'm really excited to get into 6, because I've tried Final Fantasy 6 twice, and I think we talked about this on Discord, that like I stopped pretty early on, like the part where you split up into 3 different parties and you can do them in whatever order. But I
For those
think,
of you who don't know, like Taylor and I are like friends. We talk on Discord all the time. We've talked on the phone for like over an hour before. So we talk pretty often. So yeah, he quit at like the scenario system and he's like, this game sucks at the scenario system. I'm like, come on.
I just think, to me, the thing I don't like about the old retro RPGs, the high encounter rate, and then just like battles, you're just kind of, like you said, you're doing your home. You can do the battles while you're doing your homework, right? It's so simple.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm kind of having fun with 5 because it does the job system, and there's so many jobs that like are not
Where are
in.
you at in 5?
According to a walkthrough that I'm doing, I'm halfway through, I think.
Are you in Gallif's world?
I haven't got there yet, but I have, like, I think I have all
So you're
the
about one
available
third.
jobs, I think.
Oh, so have you gotten all 4 crystals? You gotten the Earth crystal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So
there's,
you're maybe a third of the way through.
okay. So I did that, and then there's like, you go to like the Chocobo Forest and he spits out some extra crystals or extra jobs,
Okay.
and then you fly somewhere and fly back, and you have an airship. I think basically, like, I have an airship, and like I'm kind of just flying around right now.
Okay. Have the ruins come out of the Earth? Like the Ronka ruins, have they gone to the sky yet?
That sounds familiar. I think that's the next thing I'm supposed to do. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
yeah,
That thing flew out of the ground, and I'm supposed to fly to it. So that's the next thing I'm supposed to do.
got you. So yeah, you're about a third of the way through. So good, 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 good. I'm glad that you're enjoying it because I love Final Fantasy V.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, and I would love to have known what it was like. Well, we didn't get 5, so this would have been impossible, but it would have been interesting to go from 4 to 5, because in 4, you know, it at least in the Pixel remasters, the presentation and everything is very similar to the NES ones. But then in 5,
Mhm.
like, the characters get very much more expressive, like they have little funny animations and stuff like that. And so to me, the presentation, I guess, jumped from 4 to 5. Although I don't think the story is as interesting in 5 compared to 4.
No, the storyline takes a back seat. It's really all about the job system, the battle system, that sort of stuff. Fooling around with the jobs, mixing and matching, side quests and places to go to. Speaking of side quests, I did say I was going to get back to this. You're going to get to an area. So hold on. You just finished Final Fantasy IV, correct?
Yeah.
What did you do any extra side quests in Final Fantasy IV?
I think I pretty much did most of what was available as far
Okay, so
as
you got like the summons, you got like Ashura and Leviathan, you got the Sylphids, you got
Bahamut.
Bahamut, all
Mhm.
that. Okay, good. Because back then, side quests actually mattered. You actually got really good rewards for them. In modern games, if you do a side quest, you might get some gold, some extra experience, some bullshit crafting item that nobody cares about, a weapon that's underpowered, that sort of stuff. But back then, like even in Chrono Trigger, once the Black Omen appears in Chrono Trigger, you have access to side quests. And the side quests not only give you better equipment and better stuff, but the side quests also flesh out the characters. Like Marl's side quest with her dad and how her mother died and all that kind of stuff. It's just stuff like that. It's just side quests back then don't hold a candle to side quests in modern days, and you're going to see that again in Final Fantasy VI because literally one half of the entire game is side quests in Final Fantasy VI,
Wow.
and I think you're really going to like that.
No, I that's one thing I will agree on is modern day side quests. It's just to pad the length. They're all dumb
Mhm.
and garbage. The
Yep.
one I will say that there 2 side quests in modern RPGs come to mind that I wish this is how every side quest was. So this is not a JRPG, but in Horizon Zero Dawn, early in the game, there's this giant hole in the ground, and you go in this hole, and you're like, what the hell is this? Because there usually aren't holes in the game. And you come across this giant glass case, and then when you walk in the room, everything lights up, and there's this like awesome looking set of armor, and you can't get in, but you need these 3 keys, and you don't know where the keys are. They're just somewhere in the world. And so to me, that was maybe my favorite side quest of all time, because it's like there's this awesome thing waiting for you that you stumble upon. The game doesn't give it to you at a job board or something stupid. You just stumble across it. And once you get it, it's like the best armor in the game. So like,
Oh, that's neat.
yeah, that like you get momentary invulnerability when you start battles. Like you don't take damage for a little bit, and then in Final Fantasy 15, once you beat the game and the car turns into like the flying car, there's this like secret dungeon that you can't get to unless you have the flying car. And it's this like wild, like platforming dungeon. And like you can't even see where you're going half the time and stuff's like upside down. It's really crazy.
Huh. That sounds really frustrating to me.
Oh, it was infuriating. Like, and it's sort of a maze, but you get a really good weapon at the end. I think it's either a weapon or some armor or something. Um, but yeah, and there's some dumb stuff too. Like I remember fighting the Animantoise in 15. Literally, I'm not even kidding. I think I sat there for 20 minutes fighting it because it has so much HP.
Have you ever beaten Yzamat on Final Fantasy 12?
No, I love 12, but I never did that one.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was like my dog's doing a thing.
Doggy.
Hey, Steven Billo. Modern games, what you complete everything so you could show people your platinum achievements on social media. Pretty much, like that's what modern games are about now. It's all about getting that trophy. Like back when games would reward you with in-game stuff. I see you. I know. They would reward you with in-game stuff and stuff that actually mattered. But now it's all about getting that platinum. They want that platinum. You know what I mean? They want that platinum. Say hello to everybody, Kupo. Say hello.
Kupo? Is that your dog's name?
Say
Kupo?
Hello. Kupo. Yeah,
hello,
like
Kupo.
A moo. Okay. Get down. Oh, get down. Okay.
And then here's one thing that I will admit with modern games, and I feel like there's one series that does this well, but I feel like modern RPGs are just too long, especially as I get older and I have less time for them. That like sometimes they're like 60, 70 hours. Like Jesus Christ, like get to the point. Like I know one of the series that I've hit on before is Xenoblade. I think Xenoblade games are just bloated. There's so much fluff to them and they're just too long, especially X. Like Xenoblade
could you
X
possibly
is way too
say
long.
that Xenoblade is too bloated or too long and your favorite series is like Persona? Like
yeah, I mean, you got me there. I will say that Persona 5, it was interesting because in my 10 out of 10 RPGs video, people were like, where's Persona 5? And I'm like, the last 2 dungeons suck so bad. Like the space one is really bad. And then what frustrated me is usually after a dungeon, you get like maybe a week and a half of like free time where there was no dungeon. You could just do whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of Persona 5, you have the space dungeon and then you immediately go into the final dungeon. So there's no break. And it just felt like a slog. I was like, ugh. So to me, it'll never be a perfect game. And then I also missed the extra semester in Royal, which pissed me off so much because there's like 10 hours of content that I just missed because I didn't.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was literally, I beat Royal and I was like, where's the extra semester? And then I looked up how to get it. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so I'm not even kidding. I started a new file. I put it on easy and I just was like blasting through it. And I got about 10 hours in. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't play through the game again.
No. Just again. Just to get that. Like I would look it up on YouTube or something. Like, good Lord. Like
that's why I ended up doing.
Time to me, time is precious. Yes. You know?
Yeah.
Time is very as a kid, if I was playing through it, I could see myself playing it again. I mean, I've replayed so many games so many times, you have no idea. But I did it mostly as a kid. But as an adult, like, it is so difficult to play anything over even like 40 hours, let alone something like 80 hours. It's so hard. At this point in my life, sweet spot, like perfect game. It's between like 20 and 30 hours. Like, I know a lot of people are going to say, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's not worth the price tag of the money if it's not a 100-hour game or whatever. But like, no, I'm sorry. It's too much. It's too much. It's too bloated. And if you're going to add bloat, make them side quests that I can easily skip because I'm done, you know?
That's exactly where I'm at. And I think the series that does that best right now is Ease. I feel like Ease is like, I think 8 is probably the longest, but again, there's a lot of optional content like the raids and like collecting all the, you know, the passengers or whatever. But like Ease 9, I think that game's like 20 hours. you know, and
Yeah,
like I know people didn't like it because you're mostly in the city, but I love
I liked it.
the I love Ds9. It was awesome. Like I
Yeah,
love the movement mechanics, the gifts, like running up the wall and all that stuff. Like that was so
I felt like a
fun.
superhero. I felt like Spider-Man shooting all over that city. It's great.
Oh yeah, it was so much fun. And-
Hey, Happy Console Gamer is here. Hey, Happy Console
oh,
Gamer. He says 10-10 stream, guys. Hell yeah, it is. Thank
what's
you so
what's
much.
up,
Thank you,
Johnny?
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I'm gonna say it again. The 10 out of 10 trend that's going on in like our community right now, that's all from Johnny because he had a 10 out of 10 Switch games video, and I was like, I want to do that with JRPG. So that was
Yeah.
all his idea. So kudos to
Awesome.
Johnny.
I did a 10 out of 10 video and everybody seemed to like it. And I'm actually working on a part 2 video right now.
Nice.
Mostly retro games. Hate
Nice.
to say it, Persona 5 is not on the list.
So to kind of meet in the middle here, I want to talk about some games that try to blend both. Like they're modern, but have some retro like
Mhm.
stuff. Like so, we just got Octopath Traveler 2, and Sea of Stars is coming out later this year. So like, what are your thoughts on games like that that like have pixel art or try to do the throwback thing? Like, how do you think of
I
those games?
love them. I think they're wonderful because it does exactly what I was talking about earlier. It has how like if you play a retro game on original hardware, it's kind of like, but hey, bring back Fluffy Dogs. I cared about game as a child when I got 1-2 games a year. Now I'm good with 15 to 30 hours for RPG. So I'm not alone. We're not alone in this length. But yeah, um, playing these games now. What was I saying? Oh, if you play a retro game on the original hardware, it can be kind of a little bit unbearable with some of the things. It conking out on you, it not working, having to blow into it, the save battery not working, the random encounters that take forever. That can be kind of unbearable. But these other ones, these newer, more inspired ones like Chained Echoes, Octopath Traveler 2, Sea of Stars, those games are they take the best of both worlds. They take the best of the retro and the whimsy and the inspired, the ethereal music, just everything that's great about it. They take all that, but then they also add in those quality of life features, such as being able to save anywhere and having to wait till a save point, um, being able to fast forward through battles, somebody like a little indicator saying, hey, you need to talk to this guy right here. Or like a little journal that says, like, yesterday we did such and such, such and such. Now we need to go here. That sort of stuff. I love those games. I think they're great. They're my favorites, really.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like I feel like Square Enix like struck gold with this HD 2D thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the irony of that is right around the same time they started that studio Tokyo RPG Factory, and I feel like the HD 2D games did what they were trying to do with that studio because after
Mm-hmm.
Ononaki, I think was their last game, they haven't put a game out. So
No, well, I think that they shut down. They shut down, and then they are getting reabsorbed by the rest of the company. Yeah.
that makes sense because they were, from what I understand, that was a really tiny studio, like not more than
Mm-hmm.
20 people or something.
It was
Um,
basically like their take because there wasn't really portable games like 3DS, DS, all that, Vita, that's gone. So that was kind of their take on budgety portable type games, but on a console, essentially, is what they were trying to do, really.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think, I Am Setsuna was pretty good, and I feel like they slowly got worse. But
Hmm.
to me, I feel like they could crank out an HD 2D game every year, and I'd eat
Oh
it
yeah.
up. I'd gobble it up.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Octopath, Triangle Strategy. Even though like they're starting to like remake games, right? Like Live Alive, and then Dragon Quest 3, which I don't know where that game is, but that's coming
They announced
supposedly.
that they announced the entire trilogy, and we
Oh, they
haven't heard
did? Oh, I didn't know that.
from them since. Yeah, the
In,
whole trilogy. Basically,
hmm.
they came out with the announcement for 3, but then Yuji Horii was like, "Well, I'm not really supposed to say it, but we're also getting 1 and 2." Hee hee hee. So that's how that was. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. I wonder if that's why we haven't heard about it because they're gonna wait to do. Maybe they'll go in order. They'll like do 1, 2, and 3 or something.
They actually put out an article about that because they had another interview with the guy. Because if you know um, how Dragon Warrior works, um, Dragon Quest 3 is the first. Chronologically, it goes 3, 1, 2. So they're trying to figure out how they can rewrite the story or retell parts of the story to make it make sense as if you played it in the order of 3, 1, 2.
Oh,
If that
interesting.
makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I feel like there's a lot of, not that this is a JRPG, but there's a lot of rumors going around that that's what they're going to do with the Metal Gear games, and they're starting with 3 because I think 3 is technically the first game in the timeline or something.
Mhm.
I've never played any Metal Gear games, so I don't know. But
I haven't either. Yeah, I got nothing.
but so Kevin Lewis just brought up something interesting that we didn't touch on, but he says, I don't know when this started, but modern games with getting true endings can sometimes piss me off because it's extra steps to get what really happens in the plot of that game. I hate true endings. I think that's one of the stupidest things in games. And I guess the idea is like, oh, it gives you more value because like it forces you to do more and like you'll get more out of it. I hate that crap. Like true endings can die in a
In a
fiery
fire.
pit.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. Like I think that the first game that I played with true endings was probably Valkyria Profile, where you had like
Mm.
ending A, B, or C or whatever, and you had to follow a guide to a letter to get that. Same thing with Final Fantasy X too. You had to follow the guide to a letter to get that like 110% or 101% or whatever the hell it was. And it just takes the fun out of the game. It just sucks it away. I don't mind different endings if it's just like, choose the girl that you want to get married with or whatever. Like that I don't care about. But if it completely changes the ending, like if you play through a 60-hour RPG just to get a bad ending, that's crap. That sucks. I hate that. Yeah, I agree. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that was the worst. I mean, this is a little bit different, but I remember, and Nick in chat is gonna know this, but I remember when I played Persona 4 for the first time, I got like the bad ending, which is like halfway through the game because you make this choice, and like if you make that choice, the game just ends. And I was so pissed because I was like, this cannot be how the game ends. But thank God I had a save right before and I could just keep going. And there's probably another, I don't know, 20, 30 hours to that game. But in
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts, I think Kingdom Hearts is the worst with this. Kingdom Hearts always has a true ending. And my favorite, it's not my favorite, but I think it's kind of funny that in the, I think it was the DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3, they have this secret ending and it's literally, they just remade this trailer from Final Fantasy Versus 13 where Noctis is in the car driving through the city. It's literally that shot for shot, but just with the character they have in the game. It's so weird. It's like Nomura going, I'm doing what I want. I don't care if you canceled my game or took it away from me. I'm going to do it
My
anyway.
God, that's funny.
It's really
I just had a chat from Stephen Bobo saying the downside to retro gaming is actually finding a freaking copy, a used copy in good condition, and that's the God's honest truth. That's another reason why I emulate. But then again, I collect. You can see all my junk behind me, so hey, who am I to say anything?
I will say that it's nice that we are starting to get more of these. Like it's taken a while. Like we got like Grandia, right? Like Grandia is sort of a niche franchise, but not really. But like we got those. I wish those would come to like all consoles, not just Switch. I think PC.
I know.
But like
I'm glad that we're getting those remasters. Like we are in a JRPG renaissance right now. We really are, especially retro JRPGs, and especially with this HD 2D. And you know what needs to be HD 2D'd? The Phantasy Star series. Sega needs to get on this. They need to get on this, like for real. Give me some Phantasy Star, get me a Shining Force collection, HD 2D. I am all about it. I would love it. Especially maybe some of their stuff on the Dreamcast and Saturn, stuff that you can't really even emulate. Like that would be fantastic. That would just be absolutely fantastic.
Ooh, shout out to Zygor. He's in chat, just saying hi.
Oh,
What up,
hey.
Zygor?
Awesome.
Yeah, and like we're getting the. I don't know how to say this. Suikoden, Suikoden, whatever. We're getting that collection soon, which is. And what's cool about it too is, and a lot of these retro remasters don't do this, but it's widescreen, which is really cool. It's not just the square box, like even like the Final Fantasies kept it like that. So I appreciate that. And then, gosh, there's so many that that totally deserve it. But yeah, I'm loving this sort of. Because like you were saying, I feel like this is definitely like a second golden age of JRPGs because we get all the big modern ones, right? Like we're getting 16 in a couple months, you know.
I'm looking forward to 16. Are you looking forward to it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I know
Yeah.
people are mad that I find it hilarious that people are still mad that it's not turn-based. I'm like, it hasn't been turn-based in 7 years. Like, where have you been? like 15 and 7 remake, you know.
I mean, like, I get it because I don't like that I don't like that it's not turn based too. So I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, I'm not going to not play the game because of that. I'm still going to play the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I can bitch all I want to, but there's I can't change anything.
No, you know, what would be fun. You know, I was talking to some people. I don't know where I was talking about this, but I'm like, you know, it'd be really neat is if like, so they do 16, and then 17 is in like an HD 2D style, just because why not? Like, I think that would be
You know what?
cool.
There was an article about that. I shared it on my news show.
Oh,
There was an
that's
article
right.
about that,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they were saying something like, "There's nothing to say that we can't go back to HD 2D." My head would explode. As far as I know, Flippy Dogs, there is no physical pre-order for Suikoden, but I will let you know whenever one pops up.
It doesn't even have a release date yet, I don't think.
No, well, there was a leak on some French website saying that it was coming out in February, so I reported on that, and then yeah, the torches and pitchforks came for me in the comment section. So
Oops.
I
um,
can only do what I can only do.
oh, and then a bunch of people are mentioning Eden Chronicles. I'm looking forward to that too. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, that is coming out soon.
I love that
I
it's like
actually
the
have some
same team.
questions here
Oh yeah, yeah.
from I have some questions here from my Patreon. I asked them and I was like, hey, if you have any questions for us, we can talk about it. So I got a question right here. It says, do you consider games like Forspoken as a modern action RPG, or do you think it's more of an action adventure game like Zelda? As far as I'm concerned with Forspoken, and I enjoyed it, I know, I consider it an action RPG. I do. I do. You can upgrade equipment. You can paint her nails. She can go around and cast different spells from 3 different schools of magic. There's different areas to go and explore. I liked it. It was okay. It was okay.
Yeah, I like the movement. The movement was really fun. It was fun to kind of like parkour around and fly and glide
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. The I only played the demo, so I have no idea how it plays out in the full game. But to
Okay.
me, the combat, I felt like for an action game, I felt like I was fiddling around in the menus too much because you have to constantly like, all right, let me pull up the wheel and switch to my spell and then switch. You know, like I felt like there was a little too much of that.
It was better in the full game. They did fix some stuff. It was better in the full game. Um, I do remember, like, a lot of the times, like, I would want to walk into a door, and instead of being able to walk into a door, she was parkouring and backflipping all over the fucking place, and she would like end up on the roof of the building, and I'm like, bitch, walk through the damn door. I'm like, we
Yeah.
got another question. This is from Bluey. He says, what are elements of retro RPGs that you'd like to see in more modern RPGs? I'll let you answer that. What are some elements of retro RPGs that you would like to see in modern RPGs? So tell me what the great things about
Mm,
retro RPGs are. I can't
I'll
wait.
say two things. I'm with you on world maps. I love that style of design, and I think Sea of Stars is doing that. So I think Sea of Stars has a world
Mhm.
map. So I'm
They have a
excited.
world map, but it's like an Chrono Trigger vibe. It's like the little teeny tiny characters on the large world map.
Yeah,
They have more of like a region thing going on.
that's what I love that style of world map. Like in yeah, like the old Final Fantasies, where like the character is bigger than the town. It doesn't make any sense, but I
Yeah.
just love that. I think that's really cool. And then like we were just talking about HD 2D. Like I feel like most games it's either like hyper realistic modern or you do pixels. But I love that like low poly look, low polygon look of like the early PS1 RPGs. There's something about that look. Like I feel like the game that holds up the best and looks really good is Mega Man Legends. Like I would
Mhm.
love a game in like a low poly look. Like that would be so cool to have a game look like that. And there are some, like it's not like there's none, but like as far as RPGs go, I feel like there are not as many.
See,
Um
I feel like graphically, and graphics don't really matter to me all that much. As long as the gameplay is good, I can deal with bad graphics. I really can. I grew up with a Game Boy, for God's sakes. So, but honestly, if I was going to look and pinpoint one generation, it's that N64 PS1 generation that I think has the worst graphics that just did not age well at all. Everything else I can really enjoy.
Generally speaking, I would agree with you. There are, especially like Final Fantasy VII, right? Like their hands are blocks or whatever.
Hmm.
But there are some that like it kept, like I said, with Mega Man Legends. I think is the best one. Like it has a their faces are just really expressive, and there's I don't know, there's something about that look. But I would agree on a whole, that generation holds up the worst of just about
Yeah.
any console.
Yeah. I always thought it was so funny watching Tifa and Scarlet have that slap
Oh,
contest in Yunnan, but they're both like slapping with squares. Boom, boom.
oh, I can't wait for that in part 2 in the remake. That's
Yeah.
going to be wild.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. We got
uh,
another question.
well, what about for you? Are
Uh,
there any retro things that you want in modern RPGs?
Elements of retro RPGs that I'd like to see in more modern RPGs? Everything! Everything retro in these modern RPGs. Get rid of high school, add in these world maps, like, get rid of just all this blabbing, get rid of all the crafting. I want to just enter a dungeon, and I want to pick up a piece of treasure, and I want that to be the treasure, and, like, I don't want to, like, ugh. It's just never ending. It's never ending. Like, ugh. My God. It's like everything that they add to try to just make it fluffier, I guess. I don't know. It's like we can't let you just have a piece of treasure because we need to expand our game time by having you sit around and craft for a year and a damn day so we can say this game is actually 50 hours whenever in reality it would be 30 if we just got rid of all this bullshit crafting. Like, ugh. It's just obnoxious.
Yeah.
From Dress to Depress. With so many retro-inspired RPGs in the market these days, how can you differentiate the high-quality ones from the cash grabs? I would say just you gotta listen to reviews. You have to really research nowadays. Back when, you could pick up a Nintendo Power and you could really figure it out from the screenshots, you know? But now we do have demos, we have reviews, and I can pretty much look at something and know and say, this is my look, this is my feel, this is what I like. Does this game fit that aesthetic? And then I can figure it out that way, since really magazines aren't really a way to do it any longer, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what was interesting is I did this video a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, where I was on Steam just looking for like, hidden gem JRPGs. And there were some that had like retro graphics, but they're just the design and how you go through the world and stuff is boring. So yeah, you definitely have to watch reviews. And what I love about Steam is it has, the user reviews, which I feel like for the most part, it's not like Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic. I feel like for the most part, it's pretty accurate, pretty reflective of like the game. So yeah, I feel like you'd have to watch reviews, go on like the Steam user reviews, see what they're saying.
I've even noticed that some websites that I used to use are not in use any longer. Things like Game FAQs. If you go to Game FAQs and you look up a guide for a PS5 game, good luck. It's like people just quit writing guides around the PS2 era. I don't know what happened, but nobody has like a text guide on there any longer. And nobody really writes reviews any longer either. I've got a question here from Douglas Parker. At what point in our game did you play that you realized you prefer retro games over modern? And what's your least favorite modern game that Taylor likes?
Ooh.
Least favorite modern game that Taylor likes is, we very much disagree on Persona. So I'll go with Persona 5, just because of the blabbing. It's just blabbing. At what point, I think it was somewhere in the PS3 era, whenever it kind of hit me like, what is going on? Why aren't they releasing RPGs that I like anymore? Why is there only, like, I could count on one hand the amount of RPGs in the PS5 that I liked. It's like Graces, Zillia 1 and 2, Ni no Kuni. What else was there? You know what I mean? And it was then whenever I was like, I have to go back in time and during this 8-9 year period to actually find anything decent, or go into the portables, go into the DS, the PSP, those sort of things. And that's where I really found out that, hey, these games on the PSP and stuff are much more retro than anything on the consoles, and that's what I like. That's what I enjoyed. Game Pro, I'll have to check that out, Stephen Bobo.
And real quick, Douglas Parker also messaged me, basically flipping the question.
There you
go. He's like, "What's your least favorite retro game that David mentioned that he likes, and what retro games do you wish made a bigger impact on my favorite modern games?" I probably Earthbound. Now the funny thing is I've not actually played Earthbound, but I just take one look at it and I love the charm, everything about it except actually playing the game. sounds fun. Like I love that it's modern and it's weird and stuff, but like I look at that game and go, man, I just don't know if I can do it. And then Final Fantasy 6, but I feel like with the pixel remasters I'll be able to get through it for sure. And then
You'll like Earthbound. My God. It's not that bad. Come on.
and then what retro games do I wish made a bigger impact on my favorite modern games? I would say one game that hasn't come up, but is one of my favorite retro RPGs is Final Fantasy Tactics. And obviously we have Fire Emblem, but like that's kind of it for those kinds of games.
It's different. Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics are two different beasts. They really are. They're two different beasts.
And I know there's that long rumored, remaster. I am going to lose my shit when that gets announced because that's
totally coming because that was in the NVIDIA leak. Yeah. Every single little tiny thing in that NVIDIA leak has been here except for the Final Fantasy IX remake, not remaster, remake, and the Final Fantasy Tactics. I think it was remaster. Maybe it's a remake. I don't know. But that's what I want. Like, those are coming. They're coming. They're coming. I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it into the universe. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
I know. I've been waiting. Ever since that NVIDIA leak, I've been waiting. I'm like, come on, just give me the freaking Tactics. Even if it comes with Advanced 1 and 2, that's fine. Like, we do a big collection. That's great. But just give us Tactics on modern platforms besides mobile, because that's not good enough.
No, mobile sucks. I would love that. I don't think that they'll do a collection, but that would be cool if they made some sort of collection. Like a Tactics collection, because I never was able to get into the advanced games. It was too kiddie, and also just the way that the law system.
Yeah,
that law system sucks.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Hey, try to beat all these guys, but you're not allowed to attack. Have fun. What? I can't attack. Are you kidding me? Like, dumb.
Yep.
Last question that we got from Mox Bagel. Dragon Quest systems are just kind of reiterated instead of evolved, and many of Dragon Quest XI's combat and other systems are pretty similar to the NES entries in the series. When is it better to refine something instead of creating something new? Well, we all know that Final Fantasy always likes to reinvent the wheel, and whereas Dragon Quest and things like Fire Emblem are very much great granddaddy and they don't change. So as far as I'm concerned, it really comes down to whenever something works, it works. When people enjoy something, don't change it. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? There's no reason to make harder work for yourself as a developer. If everybody likes something from Dragon Quest, let's just take it wholesale and put it in the next game. Final Fantasy, they want to change. And how's that working for them? That's all I got to say about that. How's that working for them?
Yeah,
they're losing just as many fans as they're gaining.
Yeah, I feel like that is the double-edged sword of being a Final Fantasy fan, because it's like people always say, like, what does it even mean to be a Final Fantasy game anymore? And that's a good question, right? Is it just an RPG that has chocobos, Moogles, and a guy named Sid? Like, because it's like there's no clear like gameplay, like anything. Like if you look at Final Fantasy 1 is different from 7, is different from 10, 12. I mean, I think 12 is when they really just threw it out the window. Every game was just totally different.
Yeah.
And I like 12. I think 12 is probably
12 is okay.
Yeah, especially you have to play the Zodiac remaster where they speed everything up, because then
I got it.
Yeah, that's the best way to play that game, because otherwise you're literally not even playing the game. It's literally playing itself in some aspect.
I know.
But
yeah, I know. You set up your gambits and then you leave it on overnight while you fight Yzmat. I know. I'm aware.
But then, I feel like with Dragon Quest, I feel like they're now at the point where it's like, okay, we're 11 games in. Now maybe we need to change something. Because I felt like the combat, everything about 11 was great, except the combat was just so bare bones. Like in a world where we have something like Persona, not the game, not the social stuff, but the combat, where it's like you weaken it and then they're down, and then once everybody's weakened, you do an all-out attack. Like I
will say that I do enjoy the combat in Persona. I do like the press turn system. I will say that, yes.
Yeah, and I think I think just having turn-based combat now is not good enough. You've got to do something interesting with it. Like, I feel like the game, and you tell me your thoughts on this, but I feel like the game that totally resurrected turn-based combat was Bravely Default, because it gave you the ability to turn and counter rates on and off. You could speed up the battles. You could store turns and go multiple turns in a row on top of the job system, which is basically the Final Fantasy V job system. But I feel like that really pulled turn-based combat out of the gutter, in my opinion.
I think that turn-based combat was never actually in the gutter. And to say that it was in the gutter is blasphemy. No, I love turn-based combat. I think it's great. But yeah, I love Bravely Default, and I think that it's great. Like, there's something to be said about just saying, like, oh, look, I have 4 turns and I can beat up these bitches in 4 turns. Okay, random encounter done in 2.5 seconds. You know, I think that's fantastic and that's great, and that's what I like about it. But at the same time, whenever you get to a boss encounter, you really gotta think and work and brave and default and figure it out and use the strategy. But it does help that you can blow through those random encounters so quickly. I feel like saying that turn-based combat was in the gutter is just...
Maybe that's a bad way of putting it. I would say, how about it
maybe
modernized it? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. Because I feel like we were getting more action RPGs, and it was.
I don't mind adding little things here and there, like Super Mario RPG for the SNES. It's basically the RPG that began timed encounters. You know, hitting the A button the second time when the hammer comes down or whatever it was, and like doing little things is okay, but sometimes they overwork it and they do too much, and it ends up taking the fun out of it. I agree here with Stephen Bobo. He says a good game mechanic would be to copy other games like a limit break system. Adding something like a limit break system to Dragon Quest, it's a little tiny thing that they could do, but it would go a great way to helping to modernize it and helping it out. Or maybe one of those all-out systems like you were talking about. In 8, they did add the Psych Up system, where you can kind of, I don't know, use turns to gain energy and then become Super Saiyan and then just, you know, blast the crap out of everybody. And that was a fine addition, but Dragon Quest is just stable and it works and it's good and I like it. If you're going to experiment, don't experiment with the granddaddies of RPGs. Experiment with something else, you know? Like I think that's what gets everybody about Final Fantasy, is that they're experimenting with a granddaddy, and they shouldn't. If they want to experiment, they should create another game and experiment with that one, not with an actual Final Fantasy, which is, yeah. And that's just, I think that's what gets everybody. Bring Back Fluffy Dog says Octopath has some interesting, challenging combat, and they did. And it was the same thing with Bravely, insofar as the randoms you could pretty much get through very, very quickly. You could build up your, I forgot what they called it in Octopath. You could build up a little thing by hitting the R button and then blast your enemies and you're done. And but the bosses, you really had to think about it, you know?
And I agree, and that's what I loved about, you know, Bravely and Octopath Traveler, because it's I would say Octopath even leveled it up a step further, because some of the bosses did these things where, like, you didn't know their weaknesses until you would use it on them, and so it was like this guessing game at first, and then sometimes they would have phases where it would lock certain weaknesses, so you couldn't do it even if you hit them with it anyway.
I hated that. I hated that. Oh, that pissed me off. But I get it, and it did, and it made it challenging, and it made it fun, and it made it unique. And doing a little thing like that, maybe to Dragon Quest 2, would be cool. But you know, they're changing it in Dragon Quest 12. I heard that it's going to go action. I've heard this. I've heard it. I've heard rumors. I've heard things. Hey, I've heard it's going to go action. We shall see. I know it's going more adult. More adult and darker. But I heard it might go action, and I'm not exactly happy with this.
Yeah, I would even be kind of bummed if it went action. I don't mind the darker tone, I guess. But yeah, I think Dragon Quest, I mean, it's gone this long still being turn-based.
I know.
Like, just keep it turn-based, because they have so many spin-offs, right? Like, they have the Dragon Quest Heroes, they have Builders, they have all these Joker, whatever, those Monster Joker, whatever that is, you know.
Yeah, and Heroes is action. and Treasures was action as
Treasures,
well.
yeah.
So they should, if you're going to go action, make it Treasures 2 or a Heroes 3 or whatever. But leave Dragon Quest alone. Leave Quest alone. You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm with you. Like, keep it sacred. Add something, because even with 11, right? They did 11, and then they did 11S, and they added a fast forward function. So clearly
They
they're
added a
like,
fast forward function and they added a 2D mode, which is fantastic. I love the 2D mode.
that's right. Because what was interesting is I remember they had that in the Japanese version, because they made a 3DS version that was just the 2D version,
Mhm.
but we never got
Mhm.
that. So I guess
No,
they
God
kind
forbid.
of met in the middle by putting it into one
Yeah.
game, which is cool. Um, this is not a question, but it's something that just came to mind. What are your thoughts on various remakes? Because there's different kinds of remakes that we've had over the years, right? Like, you have something ultra faithful like Live Alive. Like, Live Alive is more or less the same game, just, and I know you don't like Live Alive, but it's just with modern visuals. But then you have something like uh something that's still faithful but more modern, like Trials of Mana, and then you have something like
Trials of
Seven,
Mana.
which is
Yeah.
like basically a
7 is
sequel. It's like a sequel. It's not even really
it's
a
basically
remake.
7 is an entirely different beast. Like
Yeah.
it's a genre flop. I think that a remake of something like Live Alive is perfectly fine. You know, you like the game, you don't like the game, whatever, who cares? But remaking it and bringing it to modern audiences with extra bells and whistles is fine, and I think it's wonderful. If you're going to remake a game, let's do a tale of two remakes. We have Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana.
Mm.
The Secret of Mana remake blew. It sucked. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, because it was all this like, crashing, and it just like it didn't do anything to elevate the experience. It added in voice acting for everyone, including the NPCs. But that's really it. It didn't do anything to elevate. It didn't do anything to say, "Hey, go talk to this person," or "Hey, we're going to reduce the charging time in this battle," or "Hey, we're going to help with the magic leveling system so you don't have to grind spells for an hour all the time." Like an hour between every single mana seed or whatever it was. Like, it didn't do anything to elevate it. The Trials of Mana remake elevated it out of this universe. It took one of the best games on the SNES and turned it into something spectacular, with the added voice acting, which is hysterical in its own right.
You
But
love
just it
Shawit, don't you?
rebalanced. Oh god, I want to kick Shawit's little ass. Can't stand her. No, but like it rebalanced all the classes. It just made it all really fun. It told you where to go. It just everything was great about it. It just did great. But then you do something like the Final Fantasy VII remake, and honestly, it was an entirely different genre swap, and it's just, like the remake should elevate the original game. It shouldn't do a complete 180 on the original game, and that's what the Final Fantasy VII remake did. It just 180'd it, whereas Trials of Mana elevated, Live Alive elevated, Final Fantasy VII remake flopped it. It switched it. It turned it. I guess just weird.
I'm with you up until 7 remake, because I think I would say, like, if we're just talking pure remake, I would almost I really don't know if I could think of a better remake for JRPGs. Like, I'm trying to think of any. And like, 7 is, like you said, 7 is its own thing, and I don't count remasters. Remasters and remakes are different.
Yeah, I agree.
And so Trial of Mana might be one of the best ones, especially because we never
Oh,
got it.
yeah, it's definitely up there. It's really good. The Wild Arms Alter Code F, that's a great remake as
yeah.
well. Really good. This is funny. We have a super chat here from Brick Black Fluffy Dogs. Live Alive is gorgeous. Trials of Mana is great. Final Fantasy VII hurts my soul. What have you done to my poor Final Fantasy VII? I got you. I got you. I know.
Here's what I'll say. I remember, I feel bad that Jay, like the channel JRPG, he just fell off the face of the earth. I hope he's okay. But he did a video about 7 remake, and he like hated it. He said having a Midgar is a bad idea, all the story changes. And I remember when I beat the game initially, I was like, what the hell? What was this? And then I don't know if you know who Maximilian Dude is. He's a fighting game channel, but he also really likes Final Fantasy, and he had this like ridiculously long spoiler cast. And after I like heard that and marinated on it, I'm like, oh, I I kind of love it because obviously it's not even really a remake. Like remake is almost like a double meaning in some ways because they're literally remaking the game like in the game, if that makes sense. It's very meta, but I feel like the moments in the game that they needed to nail, they did it beyond my wildest imagination. Like wall market, like they went so hard on wall market. They added all this
Well,
stuff.
they knew they had to. They had to. They knew.
I mean, that's the best part of the game. I'm not even just talking about the cross-dressing segment, which is obviously incredible, but like that, like just the physical space is so much bigger than what it was in 7. And there's all these, like I said, they added all these different characters, and the thing they did with like the battle arena with the hell house, and I was like, oh, because I was like, they're not gonna have hell house, and then it comes as like the final boss. That was incredible. But like
it was really well done. I don't know. Like, well, okay, well, speaking of remakes, we're getting another Final Fantasy VII remake in Ever Crisis, which is going to be pretty much like the entirety of Final Fantasy VII redone, remade. I think it's like GP style or whatever.
Yeah.
But it includes Crisis Core. It's like the whole shebang all in one. It's mobile. Maybe it'll come out on the Switch or something. I hope so. That'd be kind of cool. But like, it's just, yeah. I'm still gonna play part 2 and part 3 and all that, but I don't know. I feel like they shouldn't really just turn it all around. Like we had the remakes of Dragon Warrior 4, 5, 6 over on the DS, and they took great games and just elevated it. That's the Trials of Mana did. Final Fantasy VII reimagining from Fluffy Dogs, and Stephen Bobo says, I'm gonna defend Final Fantasy VII because the voice acting is excellent.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. I got you there. It is.
So in chat, Fairy Rose says the problem is that it was false advertising, which I can, if that's what people's main gripe is, that it wasn't just part 1 of like a faithful remake. I get that, because it's not. Like they changed the story quite a few times, although
yeah,
I replayed it recently on PS5, and it's really interesting to watch what the ghosts do, because they're trying to keep the story in line with the original. They're not just like doing random shit. They're trying to keep the story as it was in OG Final Fantasy VII, which is interesting. And to me, like, yeah, I definitely have had a full circle moment where I hated it too. And then I'm like, oh, now we're basically getting a sequel, and we're going to go to the same areas, because why would we not? But now all bets are off, and I don't know what to expect, which is kind of fun.
A fully realized world map, gorgeous style, huge, and I'm also expecting, let me tell you what you think about this. Arius, does she live or die? I'm thinking that she lives.
That is the big question, right? And we're probably gonna find out in the part 2, because
yeah. Definitely find out too.
Because that's got to be where it ends, at City of the Ancients. Because I've played this out in my head. I did a predictions video, and in my head, I was like, it would kind of make sense if it ended at Nibelheim the first time you go there, because there's a lot of weird shit that could happen, especially with Sephiroth running around. But I feel like it's got to be City of the Ancients.
I just had a horrible thought. What if they end part 2 with Sephiroth coming down from the roof, sword in hand, Arius down praying?
Oh no! And then it just cuts. Oh no!
And it just cuts. I would die. Then we had to wait for part 3 to see if she actually lived or died. Oh my god, I would die. Oh my god.
That might be.
Please don't do that.
That would be really smart of them. I mean, people are gonna buy part 3 anyway. But can you imagine the conversations online? I mean, the discussion would be never ending.
Oh my god. They might just do that. The whispers are a meta commentary on fans. Yes.
They are, yeah. That would be wild. And
that'd be amazing.
And I don't think we're gonna have to wait as long. I gotta be honest, I was kind of surprised at how quickly they're turning around this game. and I think that I've heard that they're already working on part 3. So I think
I
that
believe
the
it. I believe
turnaround
it.
I think the turnaround could be quick, because I think what's nice for them. Earlier you were talking about like reusing systems and assets and stuff. The hardest part was making the combat system. Like, systems is what's hard with games. Like, creating art assets isn't as hard. So now that they have the combat system, like, they'll have to make, Sid and Vincent and all those characters that aren't in the game yet. But other than that, like, I think the hard part's over. Now it's just,
Yeah.
hey, art team,
They already have the
come.
assets, they have the characters, they have the voices, they have it all. Maybe they'll do a side quest of some sort, like Fluffy Dogs just said. Maybe do a side quest. Maybe areas will die, but then they'll create some sort of side quest where you can get like the holy materia or something out of the lake and somehow revive her or something. Maybe put that in part 3 or something. Who knows? Who knows?
Ooh, Kevin Lewis says we have to talk about the timeline, because like everything that's going on with Zach and stuff. I'm curious what you think what's going to happen there. Like, did you play the Yuffie DLC?
I did.
Okay, so you saw
I
the
did.
ending of that. The little,
Yeah.
Okay, so what
Oh
do you
my
think is
God.
going on with Zach?
Like, I don't know, but so at the end of the Crisis Core remake, they killed him just like they did in the PSP version, right? Like, he still died. So I think he's gone. I think that they're gonna hold to that. I imagine so.
I don't
I
know,
imagine so.
because like at the end of part 1, he's definitely doing something, and then at the end of the Yuffie DLC, he walks into the church.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Because I was thinking about Crisis Core.
Yeah.
But wait, but they remade Crisis Core, and Tales from says I'm expecting I'm expecting player choice and branching paths, multiple endings. That could be a thing too, multiple endings. But like, the whole thing, it's just something to speculate on. Like, there's so much. You know who I wish survived? Sonon. I loved Sonon. Oh my God, I loved him. He was great. He was great. But yeah, if Zach joins your party as another character, like, that'd be cool.
I feel
That'd
like
be really cool.
that's got to be how part 3 ends, with like all the timelines coming together. Here, you want to talk about a crazy little moment? Wouldn't it be amazing if, like, as the timelines converge, you get like low polygon square hands Cloud in Remake, and like he reunites with like photoreal Cloud? I think that would just be awesome.
That would be cool. And maybe if Zach does survive, because you're right, if Zach survives, maybe the side quest will somehow involve him to get areas. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
But see, this is why
Narcona says, I won't be able to take Shinra seriously as a threat in part 2 and 3 after seeing the inexperienced party take down the god side of take down a god the size of a skyscraper. No kidding.
I thought that was a weird choice to have Sephiroth be the final boss, because it's like, are we
I
gonna
did
fight
too.
him?
I thought that was odd. I thought that they might have like a Genova piece, or they would have what the hell's his name? The Shinra kid. I thought that they would have
Rufus,
him
yeah.
be it. Rufus. Yeah, I thought they would have him be the final boss. I was like, Sephiroth. You don't even see Sephiroth in the first game until, God, probably till Calm, really.
Yeah,
In
pretty
the Calm
far.
flashback. Yeah.
Because now it's like, what are we going to end every game with a Sephiroth fight? By the time we get to the third game, it's going to lose its luster.
It's so epic. You know.
I hope they don't do that, because I mean, it was epic. That final fight was really cool. But like, if we do it 3 games in a row, it's going to get really old by that last game. So I hope they.
Oh yeah.
I hope, maybe it's one of the Genovas, because I know in you do fight Genova, one of the Genova forms in City of the Ancients after Aerith dies. So I think
You do. There's 5 Genova forms, I think. You fight. I know that there's one on the boat. There's one City of the Ancients. I don't know. It's been forever since I've played I don't know. I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to tell me, because they always do. But but yeah, like a Genova fight would have been great, because he fought Genova in the little lab, in Hojo's lab and everything too.
Yeah.
Tells Rob, final facts. Chrono Cross revisited. Interesting.
Yep. So, well, we've been going for an hour and a half. I thought this was a really fun.
This was only supposed to go for 1 hour, guys, and here we are. It's almost 2 hours. So
I know. This
hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed it.
Definitely. I mean, we can kind of cap it off. Like, what are you looking forward to the rest of the year? Like, what JRPGs are on you're looking forward to?
Final Fantasy 16, Dragon Quest 12 news, Final Fantasy III Remastered news. Or I'm sorry, Dragon Quest III Remastered news. Final Fantasy VII Part 2, looking forward to that as well. Sea of Stars, definitely Sea of Stars. Other than that, it's kind of looking like those are the big hitters. I know I'm going to get more because duh, but those are really the big hitters that I do want to get. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Definitely 16, Final Fantasy 16. I was really excited for Loop 8, and then the more I look at the gameplay, I'm
The
like,
more I look at it, I'm like, ugh, this sucks.
yeah, I don't like that you can't do traditional leveling. It's like it's all tied to like your relationships, which I
Yeah.
like that that's an aspect in Persona. I don't want it to be the entire thing. So
Hmm.
I just don't know how that's going to play out in a full game. So I'm
And did you look at the latest video that they put out for it? It is blocky and jank. It is jank, like for real.
Here's what I'll say. People keep knocking the animation. It's not that it's low frame rate. It's like they're intentionally trying to animate it like in a unique way, like 24 frames or
Yeah.
something. I don't think that was a good decision, but it's intentional. It's
No.
not like the game is running bad
But just
technically.
because somebody makes a decision doesn't mean that they have to stick with it. If
Yeah.
feedback comes in and they say, hey, this sucks, then change your mind. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind.
I agree. I'm wondering if like maybe later down the line they have like two modes, like weird unique animation mode and then like smooth 60 frames mode or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that would be nice. Or
Um
something to at least speed it up because, like, even walking slow, like, it just looked, not really, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, 16 Loop 8. I'll probably still play Loop 8 regardless.
I probably will too. It's a
Even
really cool collector's edition.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uden Chronicle for sure. Sea of
Mm.
Stars. I
Oh,
don't.
yes. Suikoden 1 and 2, I want to get that. Eden Chronicle, yeah, definitely getting that. Oh, Penny Blood Arm Fantasia, I backed the Kickstarter. I don't know if that's coming out this year, though. It might be next year. I don't know.
Oh, dude, your Golden Girls game too. I think that comes out this year, right?
That's right, the Golden Girls. Yes. Golden Girls meets Persona. That's coming out on Christmas, they said, or something. Yeah, they said this December is what they said.
That's wild. And I don't think this game's
That's
coming
funny.
out this year, but probably in my top 5 most anticipated games is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I don't know what is happening with that game, but
Was the game like announced back in like 2018 or something ridiculous?
2016.
Shut up.
September 2016 is when it was announced. And it switched from platinum, and then I think they just restarted it, and now it's supposedly that it says it's 2023, and very recently they I would say like Friday the company announced that they are opening a branch in Europe and America, Cygames.
I saw that.
So I'm like, okay, so that has to be for this game because this is their biggest game ever as far as scope goes. So
Yes.
I think that's gotta be.
I think it's going to be good. I think that if after all this development time, like if it's
It better
bad,
be
it's going to be
good.
like a Duke Nukem Forever thing again, like all over again. Like my God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's that's funny. As you said that, somebody in chat just said it. It's like the most delayed game ever, only behind
Yeah.
Duke Nukem Forever.
I know. It's ridiculous.
And then yeah, some news. It would be great to get whatever Atlas is working on next, because they announced this game a long time ago called Project Re Fantasy, and
Mhm.
it was like the Persona team made this new studio to work on this like fantasy RPG, and then we just never heard anything.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumblings from people that there are already dedicated PR people to that game for whatever that means. So
Really?
yeah, I'll tell
Well,
you.
at least it's coming, I guess. You know, at least it's coming out. Atlas, to me, Atlas screams quality. In the same way that Enix and Squaresoft used to scream quality, Atlas screams quality to me still. So pretty much whatever they release, I'm going to grab.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'll be there day one for sure. Cause like that studio, they did the Catherine remaster or whatever, and then they haven't made anything since. So I don't know what they're doing. Cause it's the old Persona 5 team. So I'm
Oh, it should be good then.
yeah.
It
So-
should be good. It should be good.
Anyway, we better end this, or otherwise I'll just ramble. I could talk about
Yeah,
RPGs.
we'll just talk about RPGs all day long.
But yeah, thank you guys
Yeah,
for
thank
tuning
you guys
in.
so much. Make sure that you like the stream before you head on out. And thank you, Taylor, for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Go subscribe to David if you're not. He does awesome RPG videos, and
Oh yeah, subscribe to Taylor too. He's amazing. He's a good person. Good man. Good man.
Well, thank you.
It's cute too.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we will.
All right, see you guys. You guys have a good Monday.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.